I got involved with this about 15 years ago. I found out that one of my coaches had passed away, and at the wake after his funeral, it was discussed how we never got together. So I started out and I got about 9 guys one day to meet in a pub, and a few months after that I got 35 guys to meet in another pub, and after that we started coming here to our clubhouse, and my list is now up to 328 guys who did at one time play football for the Vancouver Meralomas. Well, the Meraloma Club started in 1923, and the initial part of the club was to be a swimming club. They did not have this clubhouse, and some years after that they started having other sports such as rugby, which blossomed into Canadian football at the time. And from that time we had football right up, I believe, to 1984, and we were perennial BC champions at one point for 9 years in a row. 1 year in '74 making it to the Canadian Championship. Unfortunately, we did not win, but at least we can say we were there. This is not the original clubhouse. We adopted this house. Our original clubhouse, the swimming club, was down closer to Kitts Beach. I can't remember the exact year we got this house. This is a historical house. It is ours now. We are recognized as being one of the oldest amateur clubs, not only in BC but in Canada. We started in 1923, as I said, so pretty soon we've got our 100th anniversary coming up. Oh, there's so many. For that, we have published a book called Once a Mermaid, and throughout, when the guys are here, the stories, they get bigger and better, and whoever was a so-so player is all of a sudden an all-star, and it grows like that. A story per se would be that one year we played the North Shore Cougars. The ending score was 82-0 in our favor. We usually practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, but the head coach, Ed Murray, had us practice on a Monday night. Very strange. We had a full practice, and then he kept us out in the field, and we did wind sprints and cutouts and more wind sprints and cutouts. Finally, we were in the changing room, and the biggest guy on the team, as the head coach walked in, he looked at Ed Murray and he said, "Why?" And Ed Murray said, "You didn't score in the third quarter." So the next game we played the same team and we scored in all 4 quarters. When the BC Lions came in to Vancouver, they needed to have, obviously, team colors for their team. At that point, the Vancouver Meralomas were primarily black and orange. The BC Lions adopted our colors. At the same time, North Shore football team was called the North Shore Lions. They took the Lions from the North Shore team, and North Shore became the North Shore Cougars. So it's a combination of North Shore and the Vancouver Meralomas that gave the birth to the BC Lions in that regard. Over the years, the enrollment for players was declining, and previous to that, we had players coming in from Richmond. Now, Richmond had an entry into the Junior Big Four, so of course the boys from Richmond were going to play there. Other boys went to other teams, such as Burnaby. We weren't just the drawing card that we were at one time. So with a lack of numbers and the lack of talent, it just became a no-brainer, and the team was finally moved to what was Tri-Cities at that time, and they became the Tri-City Bulldogs, wearing the same colors. And eventually they just folded out there as well. So it was a sad ending, but it was an ending. Right now it just would not be A, cost effective, and 2, finding the number of players for a football team, good players sort of thing. It would just be too big of an endeavor at this point. I don't think, although I would love to see it, I don't think we'll ever see another Vancouver Meraloma junior football team. The club is running all different sports, and we have a big influx of even kids sports, female sports, and they just they're taking a different route. This today is like a once-a-year get-together that we do for the football alumni.
You know, days like this, kids that played here over 40 years ago still show up every year. It's amazing. This is about our maybe 15th or so. So I've been coming every year. I first came here to play football in 1957 for juveniles. Then I played some in 1960, and then 61 to 64. Then I took over as head coach in 67. Well, I think 1968 we didn't have near the talent that the Vancouver Blue Bombers had, and we beat them in the finals. Just the last couple plays of the game. I think that was like a real highlight. But there's been so many; it's hard to pick out one. Yeah, we're still very active with softball and soccer and rugby mainly. Lots of different sports. The club name is sort of unique. It actually started as a swim team many years ago, 1923, down at Kitts Beach. And after they started playing rugby and football, they had the name Mermaids, which really didn't fit, a football team. So they took the MER from Mermaids, and they took first and last letter of the Greek alphabet, Alpha Omega, and made up Meraloma. So it means, the old club from beginning to end, or the motto of the club is once a Meraloma, always a Meraloma.
Favorite memories? The Peony Parade. Everybody said, what'd you like about the Peony, or what memory you had of the Peony? And the best thing I could remember was every time the Peony started, it rained. So, just a boy from back west.
I played both rugby and football, and junior football in the 50s, and rugby since then, up until 40 odd years later. I ended up being president of the club for a number of years, and on the executive for a long time, and now basically organize the alumni functions. This is not bad. They're competing somewhat with Kitts High School right now because they're having a big alumni reunion up there. But no, this is we haven't had a football or gridiron reunion in a number of years because we haven't had football on the club since 1984. So a lot of the guys are gone by the boards, of course, and there are fewer every year. But there's one real diehard guy, Ray Crawford, that puts these things together all by himself, and it's, you can see that it's probably 75, 80 here now. There were more than that earlier on, but it's great to see the guys that have been here since the 40s. Some of the older guys, and right up until we ended the football program in '84. Oh, about when we had to manage the program, it was financial. It simply got too expensive to sponsor football, and football was sort of a dying sport in the high schools. Kitsilano, just across the street, used to have a great football program, and the high schools quit playing football because it was too expensive, and the high schools were our feeder resource, and it just died away. And, most of the kids that would have gone on to play football ended up playing rugby. But even those numbers have diminished. We used to have 6 rugby teams, and now we're down to 2 or 3. It's like we're a bit of an institution in the neighborhood. It was started in 1923 by 12 young men, and they were a swimming club. And the original name of the club was Mermaids. But after about the second or third year, they started playing typical young men's sports like football, rugby, etc. And they thought Mermaids wasn't an appropriate name, so they had to name the club contest. And they ended up with Meralomas, MER for Mermaid, because they wanted part of the old name. They took AL and OM from Alpha and Omega in the Greek alphabet, which is beginning to end. And then they added the A for phoneticism. So Meraloma is basically mermaids first, last, and always. That's our motto. Now it's once a Meraloma, always a Meraloma. So, a bit corny, but you know, it works. God, there's so many things, honestly, memories. I mean, the memory's not functioning as well as it used to, but just basically the anniversary years, like the 50th, 60th, 75th. We had 90th anniversary, and we had 350 people at the thing. The Lions, as you know, they're orange and black. They got their colors from us. We, on a per capita basis, I think, have supplied more people to the BC Lions over the years than any other football program. We've been a great part of this community for, as I say, 90-odd years now. And we've been housed here at Connaught Park since the 20s. Yes, there are too many memories to remember, basically. I think when we were named a heritage, I forget what the designation is. The building is a heritage building, officially, not City Hall, but we were given a special award by the city of Vancouver a number of years ago, and that was pretty special. And we've got probably, on a per capita basis, the greatest number of people in the BC Sports Hall of Fame come out of our club and any of the 8 sports that we've been involved in over the years. And we have a couple of girls right now on the Canadian national rugby team. We almost always have a couple of our male rugby players on the national rugby squad. I don't know that we've got any current players right now, but no, we've done well in every sport. Not necessarily just from a win-loss standpoint, but providing a great outlet for this community.
I'm sitting here in the Meraloma Trophy Room that encompasses both football and rugby. The history of the football club is outstanding. Meraloma Club was started, I think, about in the early 30s as a swim club called the Mermaids. Moved into rugby, football, junior football about in the late 40s, and where a force to recognize what they did is the Vancouver Blue Bombers, who were the 1947 champions, so they kind of mirrored their club after them, and they became the team to play for under Coach Eddie Murray for about 10 or 11 years. I think that they were very, very successful. There was a little bit of, in the earlier days, there was an interchange between them and the Meralomas, but they pretty well were able to corral all of the good football players coming out of high school in Greater Vancouver. There was also a team in the North Shore, one in Burnaby, CYO team, and so if you were a really good football player and you wanted to play for and get on a winning team, you either play for the Blue Bombers or the Vancouver Meralomas. That's really the way it was. And then in those early days also, they had divided up the territory into zones. North Shore had first call on all their players there. Burnaby had theirs, and also Meralomas and Bombers kind of split the Vancouver. There wasn't that much football south of the Fraser River, but anybody could go to either one of those two clubs. So, as I say, I was very fortunate to be able, as president of the Big Four, in my tenure with them in the 70s, to be able to travel with the team, and so whichever team was successful, I got the perk of going with them. It was really a good experience because as president I also worked at a national level, so it gave me a real insight into how a successful team was built. Good recruiting, good coaching, and a lot of great football players graduated from the Meralomas. They went on to play with the BC Lions. Even some of them that from Vancouver Island that became were very interested in football came over here, and they would pick either the Bombers or the Lomas to play for. So as I say, kind of recapping here, outstanding club, no longer in football. It's a shame, but that's how times have changed. The geographics of football in Greater Vancouver have changed, over the last 20 odd years since Meralomas were on the field of football.